here's a video that's going to teach you how to do something called pre-selling. Now, why would you want to pre-sell and not just actually sell? Well, because if you're having a hard time converting sales, if you're having a hard time training a salesperson, the chances are that you're giving your sales team, you yourself, an unreasonable expectation to take somebody from kind of interested to sold on one call. Or you can take them from really interested to easily sold on the same call if you pre-sell them. So this is a tell-all interview with my friend and agency extraordinaire guru. This guy's amazing, Frankie Fihn, where we tell you how to do just that, pre-sell customers so they'll buy from you easily. This can absolutely explode your agency. If you like agency-facing content like this, like, subscribe, get that notification going for you so you can see our content that we put out like this every single week. Enjoy the video.
If you can measure somebody who's like 1 out of 10 on the idea of working together and you get on a call with them, like I've had guys like that where you can almost feel their arms crossed, like, okay, big boy, tell me what this is about. And that's an example of a prospect who's like as far like as not pre-sold as possibly can be. And yeah, you can close them on a call, don't get me wrong. But like that's going to be a long journey and it's probably going to be a long call and there's going to be a lot of convincing and there's going to be a lot of back and forth. The flip side of that is, I was talking to you off air, like a 10 out of 10. I remember once I had a speech and a week later, this lady showed up on my calendar and I'm still doing my own calls back then. And I remember she said, we saw you speak at the National Trial Lawyers last week. To be honest with you, I don't even know what you sell, but I came here to buy it. So can you tell me how we work together? And it was like a 3-minute close. And that prospect was, 10 out of 10 before we even started talking. And the truth of it, like what most people miss is that the sale was made on the stage a week before, not on that call. And if what most people are trying to do is to go from I just met you to like buy my shit with ones and the real art to me is to pre-sell your things so that you never talk to anybody who's less than a 7. And usually like 8, 9s, and 10s are the people you deal with. And then what happens is your whole closing conversation becomes way more collaborative and less convincing because they're fundamentally bought into the idea. They just now want to talk about like, what would it look like if we did work together? How long would that take? What would you need from me? And it becomes a way more like we're in this together kind of conversation instead of, all right, big boy, convince me, tell me why I should do your SEO package right here, right now. And like, that kind of thing, or tell me why I should sign up for your Facebook ads.
No. So if you're watching this, if you're an agency watching this, before we get into the discussion, which by the way, the goal of this will be to not just talk about what you're doing wrong, but to give you examples and actual things that you can do so you can start getting sales. Like sales should not be a challenge. You should not struggle to get customers. You should, even if you're not great at talking to people, whatever, you shouldn't have a big struggle making sales. If you're making offers to people and like you said, they're all right, big boy, they're showing up and they're really not interested, you're doing it wrong. If you can't get offers off the ground at all, if you're running ads, everything seems cold, everything seems like it's broken. If you can't get customers, you need to learn how to pre-sell. So that's what we're going to talk about. You were telling me about the speaking from stage. And I think a lot of people are like, okay, well, he spoke from stage. I don't speak from stage. How would I do this as a beginning agency? How would I seed the jar to the point to where people want to buy from me? People go from that 1 to that 7, like you said, because you don't want to talk to people that are below a 7. So if you're new, what do you do if you don't get the opportunity to speak from stage like you got?
Yeah, and just so you guys know, I was doing this like through things like webinars and written pieces of content on LinkedIn long before anybody ever invited me to speak on their stage and before that became a thing, right? And like you have to kind of battle test that process a little bit, but it's really fundamentally simple. Is what most agencies miss is there's a question that will come up in your sales process whenever you have it, whether you do it like, we close all our stuff in video, but what fundamentally people will want to know is how does it work? Right. And what we found the best way to answer that question is to break your whatever you do down to a 3 to 5 step process and explain how you take a prospect from where they are to where that outcome is in milestones. And I actually first learned this in Frank Kern, actually. He called this results in advance. And he said they were selling a dating product And a lot of the guys, they're single, they're trying to either get laid or, meet Mrs. Right. And they said, well, if that's going to happen, before they do that, the first thing they have to do is know how to go up and talk to a girl. And then they broke it down and they said, and after that, you have to like know how to carry a conversation, like kind of which questions are interesting. And then you have to like close number one, you have to ask for the phone number. And then you got to be able to like text and get a date. And then you got to know where to have a date. And most guys, if they could get through those 5 hurdles, would be able to like actually, like at least meet a girl, maybe not always Mrs. Right or whatever. And he broke it down on a simple little timeline. And I suggest that anybody listening to this has a timeline of things that you execute on. If you do SEO, like you first find the keywords and then you put up the website. If you're doing Facebook ads, you figure out who to target and then you come up with an offer. And then you put them in front of it and you drive them to a landing page, and that landing page invites people to call, right? Or schedule something or to buy something off the site, right? So there's like a process there. And I think what most people miss is that there's always 2 sales you have to make in a process. And one of those is this a good idea in general? And then the second is, should you do it with me? And most agency owners, in my experience, have it totally backwards because they spend 90% of the time trying to sell, you should do this with me. And actually what you should spend is 90% of the time selling, you should do this at all. So like, I use the example kind of off air with, Sam's earlier meeting, but if I was trying to sell UpHex, I wouldn't try and sell like buy my system and we got the greatest ad swipe file ever. I would sell the idea that the key to winning with Facebook ads with clients, which I fundamentally believe as true, which makes it even more convincing, is that you want a swipe file of ads so that before that client hires you, you know exactly what you're going to run and what you're going to say and what you're going to do. Because if you have that in place, then you know exactly how to create wins for them quickly. And so what happens is if somebody fundamentally buys into that idea, what I would call your 3 to 5 step plan, then they need the thing on the back end. And so like, for example, like we got a guy in our mastermind, I was just talking to him. He has a Go high level SaaS that creates Google reviews for plumbers. Well, his messaging shouldn't be about selling like we got the latest, greatest SaaS that'll get you 80 billion reviews. It should be selling plumbers on the idea that if once you get a couple hundred Google reviews, you get referral grade customers. People find you on Google, they call you from there. And if they buy into the idea, that plan, that you're right, I do need Google reviews, then you're positioned as the only one who can deliver it, or the one who can make it better, faster, easier, and with less mistakes. And so pre-selling to me is really just about giving away your process in the form of ideas for free and charging for the implementation on the back end of this. And what you'll find is you actually give a lot of value to your marketplace because you can explain to them how to get Google reviews for free. This is what you need to do. This is the message you need to say. This is how many times you got to follow up. And then of course, like I always say, like if you can just hold that idea that ideas equal free and implementation equals money, you never have to hold back on ideas because most plumbers don't want to do it anyway. And then what happens is this can be a LinkedIn post. This can be a webinar. This can be a video. Hey, let me show you plumbers. You want to get referral grade customers. Let me show you the best way I know how to do that, which is to get a bunch of Google reviews. Because when you got like 500 of them and people look for you, they're going to pick the plumber every time who's got all the reviews. And so as long as you're the best at that process, you're going to get the call. And so I find when a lot of people struggle with sales, it's because people aren't bought into the process. And then they show up folded arms cold and say,
Yeah, you got to
convince me as their
yeah, you got to pre-sell them on the process. You got to put that idea that doesn't currently exist in their heads, right? And by the way, here's the benefit of doing that too, is you as an agency owner, the belief is, oh, there's already people in my space. I don't care what niche you're in. It's like, oh, there's already people with helping personal injury attorneys. What's that?
It's too saturated. It's always too saturated.
Yeah, it's always too saturated. Well, it's like, well, if you sell the thing that sells the thing, it's never saturated. One, because most people, their impulse is to just sell the thing, right? I actually, so you had said we were just on a previous meeting with a bunch of people doing a workshop, and this guy was trying to sell ad services to insurance agents. And I'm thinking to myself, you're going straight for the sale. Like that is the fundamental flaw in your approach. But this is what everyone does. Go straight for the sale instead of create the opportunity for them to be educated on the right way to do it or on the outcome that they want and how to get that. Inform them first. Then they're going to want your thing. I heard a great quote,
and I can't remember, maybe you can help me. I can never remember where these things belong, but people don't want to be educated. They want to be informed, right?
Yeah.
What does that mean? It means people walk around in their daily lives with complexities or misunderstandings or fixed ideas that don't serve them. If
Yeah.
you can inform those situations, then you become the winning story in their head. And they're like, okay, what's next? You're not creating the what's next opportunities for your agency if you're going straight for the actual sale that you want. Now, the reason you're going for that sale is because it serves you. It serves you in your bank account. It's like, well, if I sell, SEO services, like you were just saying, if I sell, or if I, you're a review guy, if I sell review automation, they're going to pay me X amount of dollars per month. That's what I want. It's not about what you want, right? It's about human psychology and creating a situation where you give them value, or you inform them on where they're at right now. So then they want the thing that you're going to, the product that you create to give them the outcome, which is the benefit, which is what they want in the first place. People buy outcomes,
Yeah, can I just rant a little bit on I'm thinking about the insurance guy. Like, if you think about what an average insurance agent wants, they probably want specific types of policies. I'm bullshitting a little bit because I don't know that industry.
Right.
But like, say they want life insurance from people who are 45 and over and own their own home. Well, we can start a piece of content in, hey, let me show you the best way to go after people who are 45 years older that are good candidates for life insurance, and how to actually generate those kind of leads from people who actually own their own home and are the perfect fit for what you do, but have never heard of you. And then let me show you all these targeting options that are available in Facebook that allow you to get in front of those people. And all you really need is an irresistible offer to get them to inquire about, your kind of thing. And that, to me, is like pre-selling the idea that Facebook ads are the best way to get there. And whenever you show them your process, you're simultaneously demonstrating your expertise. But when they get to the end of that, it creates almost like a paradox where it's like they want that, but there's only one of two ways to get it. One of them is to go do it themselves and try and figure this out. And the vast majority, in this person's case of insurance agents, they don't want to be. They don't want to be Facebook ad experts. They have no interest in doing that. They just want to get face to face with people and sell policies. That's their shtick, right? Or they can hire you, and you've already got the system, and your position as mine's already set up. It's ready to go. It's better, faster, easier than you ever do this on yourself. But where we would start that conversation is, hey, the best way to get the thing you want is using this process, using Facebook ads. And then what happens is when they get to the end of that and they want to then implement that, doing it themselves is so much harder than doing it as your thing. And what happens is, as you inform them, and you kind of describe what I would call as an unhelpful assumption. Every market has unhelpful assumptions. And in this case, it may be all kinds of things. They have oh, nobody wants what I do, or there's too much competition, or advertising is too expensive. So you have to actually break those things down long before they get to the offer of buy my Facebook ad service. It's you got to tell them Facebook ads are affordable. Yes, any insurance agent can win. This is what you need to win. You need to target the right people. You need an offer. You need this kind of setup. You need to be willing to pay this much to get a lead. You need to be able to close this many people on a policy. And if you can establish that through a piece of content that is a pre-sell mechanism, and there's all kinds of ways you can do that. A lot of times people get confused because I kind of do a little bit of everything. I do direct mail. Sometimes I do webinars. Sometimes I do, Google Docs that sell my thing. I have written posts, but it's all the same shit. It's all the same. I'm just pre-selling the process that you will need to then get the outcome that leads into my thing. Right.
It's funny because we were in that same meeting that Raul, Raul, right? He's in your program. So Raul, to give the viewers some context, he is an agency that helps music instructors, so piano instructors, people like that, get students. Seems like an interesting agency. I don't know how well it pays. It doesn't matter. At the end of the day, who cares? He wanted a strategy to go straight to get more piano teachers to, buy his ad services. And as we're talking through, I'm like, well, hold on. Tell me who the person is. Okay, they're piano instructors. Okay, great. What do they want? students. I'm like, what kind of students? Like group students? Do they want one-on-ones? Like when I did like piano, you ever do piano lessons when you were a kid? I did them for like a week.
Yeah, I actually taught myself as an adult.
Shut up. Okay. So like I did it for like a week or two or whatever. And, you know, how do they currently get their customers in a way that they're unsatisfied with, that they don't love, that doesn't necessarily serve them the best? And it was like, he had a name for it, but it sounded like bench ads, like, you know, just putting signs out. So I said, okay, well, what if you put together a piece of content that would says something to the effect of, here's 5 ways, or looking to get more students before you go out and get another seat sign. Here's 5 things you can do to get more students and fill up your calendar before spending the time on things that don't work. Something to that effect, right? So I call that stating their status quo, which you have unserved ideas, unserved, what did you call it?
Unhelpful assumption is what I was talking, but I also I have a name for what you're describing, which I call their old plan. Like it's the contrast between the way things they're
Old
doing
plan.
now, their status quo, versus like
Yeah.
our clearly different and desirable and better way of approaching that same kind of problem.
Yeah. So it's all about painting their contrast, right? So this is a situation that you deal with. You're a music instructor. You're trying to get students. It's a challenge. Why is it a challenge? Understand that. Understanding that and describing that is the black wall. Okay. Throw white paint on it by saying, hey, here's some things that you can do that are way better than the black wall, and they're completely different. They work better. And we're going to show you exactly how to get that without the threat, by the way, of a sales call, without the threat of having to give me money right now. And the crazy thing is, when you pre-sell people, when you give them value first, when you do this, when you remove the threat of a sales call, all of a sudden they're like open to a sales call. It's like, oh, you know, it's like, hey, I would be open to a phone call from you about this. And by that time, they're not a 1, they're a 7. They're not like this, they're like this.
Yeah.
Right. And that's the nuance. That's the difference. Pre-selling. I like it, buddy.
And, you know, and I can just say from experience, I had a period of time where we got really good at booking calls into our system. And often like we didn't even always have the right people. But like, I can remember actually, like we were living in Germany and I was doing my own calls, and I can remember coming home at 3 p.m., which is like 9 a.m. Eastern time. And I would have 8 straight hours of calls. And like, I'd have days and days in a row with like 7, 8 hours straight of calls. And everybody looks at the sheer number of it, but I'll tell you from experience, 100 calls with people who are 1 to 3 out of 10 is less of an accomplishment than 6 people who are 7 or above. If you get 6 people who are like mostly pre-sold and serious about working with you, you're farther along than getting 100 people who are icy cold and have no idea who you are. And it's one of those things, it's not easy. It's easy to notice once you're on a call, but nobody really talks about it in our industry because, you know, if you ask anybody what's better, 100 calls or 6, like, you know, pretty much universally people would say 100 calls. But if I have like 40 of the wrong people mixed in there, I really only had 60 calls. And if those 60 calls are all 1 out of 10 and they require like my entire afternoon to evening to like cajole even maybe one person into doing it, that's not as effective as having 6 people who actually know who you are, know what you do, have a basic idea of the process, got a like kind of an understanding of how much it is, and are showing up to you, like actually seriously evaluating you as a service provider. It's like it's night and day, and most people get caught up in the sheer numbers, but like in some ways, like there's hidden metrics in this. And one of those hidden metrics is like, you know, like as you mentioned, like how much are they out of 10, but when they show up to an actual call. Because I tell you, like, you know, when I had that like 10 out of 10, like, hey, we don't even know what you do, but we want to buy it, like 3-minute close call, like I could have had any idiot salesperson and they would have
That's right.
closed that one. They could
That's
tell
right.
you like, I'm a closer, I closed it. But the truth was they were sold a week before on stage.
That's right. And that's an interesting insight there, because people will say stupid stuff like it's a numbers game. And I do really appreciate the Alex Hormozy ecosystem. I appreciate what he's done. I think he's a really smart dude. Obviously, he's accomplished a lot of really important things. But in those accomplishments is a narrative of the better the salesperson you have, the better your business is going to be. But the problem with that is number one, identifying amazing salespeople who don't already have like great opportunities or whatever. It's a challenge for anybody, like myself
Yeah.
included. Right. So that's
Yeah.
number one. And the real thing is if you do two things, you pre-sell like we're talking about, and then you have a really good offer, you don't need a good salesperson.
At all.
At all. You any Tom, Dick, or Harry, there we go again, can jump in and say, what are your questions? How can I help answer those questions for you? Would you like to buy this? And it's done. Right. But if you go the route of manipulation and technical persuasion, or whatever you want to call that, yeah, you might have a closer that's in there and they can do whatever, but as soon as they leave, you're dead. Right? The fundamentals of your business will live or die by your ability to pre-sell and then to have an offer that's very clear to a very specific person. You do those two things and you're done. You got it made in the shade.
Yeah.
Right? And you don't have
And
to. Who wants to do 100 calls, you know?
Yeah. And I would suggest to you guys that you guys already know this is true, because I think of two companies, Apple and McDonald's. McDonald's, like, you know, through a sheer ton of advertisements, like pre-sells you on commercials. And then when you come in, they have an irresistible offer of get 2 McDoohickeys for $2.99. If they were depending on that pimply faced teenager to be like a rock star closer, I don't think they'd be selling too many burgers. I don't think they'd have too many chains. Or like if they needed an amazing salesperson to close, and Apple's the same thing. Like, I don't know if any of you guys ever been to an Apple store, but they're not closers either. Like, they're not trained on any consultative selling or anything like that. But they know that you ultimately want an iPhone, and that's why you're in the store. So they're just there to help you get what you want. And so they don't even need really any sales training, because the offer is the thing that sells. Yeah, and that's where you really want to be, because as you put it, like, I've had great salespeople, and even when you have great salespeople and it's going well, they're still humans, and they have up days and they have down days. And like, I can remember, like, you know, we'd close 8 out of 10 and my sales guy thinks like he's the greatest closer on the face of the earth. Then he goes 0 for 6, and I got to, you know, talk him out of writing down the suicide note. And is it me? Am I broken? And do I not know what I'm doing? Yeah. And all of those, and those things associated with it. And when you do more pre-selling and more offer driven, like, Apple's not struggling to find great sales talent. Neither is McDonald's, because it doesn't require a great closer. And there's something that you kind of like almost put in the background there, which I believe, like, the real skill is great opening, not great closing. Is if you know how to start a conversation with your prospect, then you really have unlimited opportunities. And as you mentioned, a lot of that starts with knowing what they're doing now, what you call the status quo, or what I would call their old plan. Because if you can describe to somebody, this is what you're doing now, and this is a new and better way, and this is what will happen for you in terms of meaningful outcomes that you want, if you use that process, just the fact that you understand that, like, makes you like above all the other marketers. And it's too bad, because most marketers talk about the wrong thing, which is their thing. Like, if I go to 20 agency owner websites, they're talking about what I would call the hammer or the plane ride, which is the thing that brings you to the destination. Like, anybody who's ever booked a plane ride can confirm what I'm saying. Like, you didn't wake up that day and say, like, I just felt like going on a plane for the hell of it. You were leaving somewhere and you had a specific place you were trying to get to. And so what happens is agency services are a lot like plane rides. Is they have a set of problems, a place they're leaving from. Maybe they're like, it's an office. They're sick and tired of meetings and alarm clocks and driving in traffic and asshole bosses. And they have somewhere they're trying to get to, maybe a vacation where they want to have, you know, beaches and sunshine and drink out of a coconut and look at bikini bums and all that kind of stuff. And the worst thing you can do is sell the thing in the middle that gets you there, and say, hey, our plane ride is extra nice. It's comfy. We have nice stewardesses. They're super friendly, because all they fundamentally want is to get away from, you know, what you would call the status quo, or what I would call the current plan, and get towards a much easier, better, kind of higher level way of doing it. And what if I look at, you know, 20 agency owner websites, they're saying, like, we do Facebook ads, and we're really awesome at Facebook ads for plumbers. And that's the thing in the middle. But the thing in the middle is in many ways the least important detail. Like, if you got on a plane, before you look at price, before you look at luggage, before you look at which airline, you want to know, does it even go to the place I'm trying to get to? And if that's not in place, like, it doesn't really matter if any of the details are on point. And so where a lot of people miss the mark is they literally just don't know what their people are doing now and what they want. And so they try and sell, hey, we got awesome plane rides, we got nice peanuts, blah, blah, blah. And their market is fundamentally going like, okay, but do you go to New York? I'm trying to get to LaGuardia. Can you
Yeah.
drop me off? Do you have any direct flights to LaGuardia? And you're going, yeah, we got nice plane rides. They're ergonomically, we got luxury seats and they're low prices. And like, yeah, that's great. But I'm trying to go to LaGuardia. Like, yes or no, right? And so a lot of it is just knowing that. And it's amazing to me because most of that can be solved with like an hour to 3 hours of market research where you just join a couple of communities of your people, read their
Yes.
comments and figure out what they're trying to move towards and away from.
So there's a guy named Harry Brown. He wrote a book that should be way more popular and famous than it is.
Yeah, I know.
Do you know Harry Brown?
I know the how I found freedom in an unfree world. I know that one.
So he has a book that's called The Secret to Selling Anything. And there's 2 quotes in that book that I love. The one is 97% of sales are lost because the salesman speaks too quickly. Okay. So just think about that. Now, the reason that I like that is because of the second quote, which is ask people what they want you to sell them, then sell them that thing. Or in other words, just this is just a redundancy on what you just said. Jump in to whoever the audience is, see what they're, and you call them market gaps, right? Like see what the market gaps are, see what they're complaining about, see what they don't like, see what their status quo is, see those things. And then just tap into the destination. Those market gaps apply a negative. There's an exact polar opposite to it. Like it's the plane, the destination, right? It's I had a buddy, I think he calls it Hell Island and Pleasure Island, something along those lines, right?
Yeah.
It's like there's Hell Island, and whether their version of hell is like super extreme, most of the time, by the way, their version of Hell Island, they can't articulate. And so when you articulate it for them, because you're getting it from different people's perspectives, you're writing it down, by the way, actually write it down with a pen, write it down. Then you understand it better than they can. And I remember I was just telling that community, I'm like, Frankie is awesome because he can take ideas that I have in my head and he can encapsulate them with one word. And you and I were talking like 2 weeks ago or something, I don't remember. And you said Me Too marketing. I'm like, oh my gosh, Me Too marketing. Like that's what everybody does. They're all Me Too marketers. Like, oh, you do this. Oh, me too. Oh, you do that. Oh, me too. Right. Yeah. And that is the behavior that is killing so many agencies. But what I'm saying is if you go back and you really understand and you can deconstruct that person's current state and what they don't like about it, if you do it articulately, they'll immediately say, you understand it so well, you know how to leave it. Where's the plane? Where's the airport? I'll jump in your Uber. Take me to the airport. We're going. Right? Like the lady that was like, I saw you speak from stage. I don't know what you sell, but I want to buy it. It's just because you understood that market and their complexity so well that you digested them for them. There's the output. There it is right there. You know what I mean?
Totally. And it's funny because when you get this really, really right, they'll actually assume you're one of them. Like I've been asked more than a few times at lawyer conference. They'll say, "Hey, Frankie, where did you go to law school and practice?" I'm like, "Law school? I'm just an internet degenerate that sells shit, right?"
Same thing with me. Everybody's like, "Where'd you go to chiropractic school?" I'm like, "No, don't know anything about it."
And in a lot of times, and I'll tell you, who actually was really instrumental for me in learning this is Jay Abraham. I was talking to Jay Abraham, and he said, we're talking about how much he gets paid for a sales letter, which still blows my mind. He charges $250,000 for a sales letter plus royalties on every sale you make from it. And we were talking about how he actually comes up with those sales letters. And he says, oh, I just go to Amazon and I look at all the 5-star and 1-star reviews on books. And then I look for the comments that get the most upvotes because people agreed with them. And so, and anything that's 5-star, I know they're trying to move towards. Anything that's 1-star, I know they're trying to move away from. And I literally just make a chart of like, these are all the things they don't want, and these are all the things they do. And I try and as many of those things I can incorporate in my sales letter I use. And I was like, that is so genius, but it's so simple because you're getting the market to write it. And what I took from that is I realized when he said it, I was like, well, there's more places than Amazon people have those discussions. Like, and two of the ones that I use a lot are Reddit and Quora. You can type into Google. You can go to Google and type in reddit.com and just go, the hardest part about being a blank. And blank is like a dentist, a doctor, a lawyer, whatever it is, who you're trying to connect to. And what happens is they'll tell you in their own words, and not only that, they will upvote the ones they most agree with. And so for me, what it was happened, like a lot of my presentations, like literally use this word for word. I remember I went on Quora, for example, and they said, what's the hardest part about being a lawyer? And he said, the hardest part by far about being a lawyer are the clients. No, I don't mean the good clients who listen to you as the learned analysis of a professional, but I mean the clients who are in this on principle and therefore think they know the law better than you, or just want to make somebody else hurt. And I forget what the rest of what he said, but like if you listen to like some of my law speeches, like I literally stand there and go, how many of you guys feel like the hardest part about being a lawyer is by far the clients? I don't mean the good clients who are in this who listen to you as the learned analysis of a professional. I mean the clients who, you know, just want to make somebody else hurt, or in this on principle, or think they know the law better than you. And you can see the heads nod. And I only know the heads nod because like that comment had 100 upvotes in there. Like many lawyers agreed, yep, that's the hardest part. So when I say that, they're like, man, this guy gets it. And what'll happen is it creates little 10-degree shifts in the promise as you make with getting out of that Me Too agency. Like, for example, somebody, I had a bunch of people ask me, you know, like this was a question, I'm sure you get asked it too. They say, if you were me and you're starting over and you had to begin again, what would you do? And I got asked the question so many times, I decided just to do it. I was like, man, maybe I should build a course and explain it. But I was like, no, I'll just do it and I'll document the process. And so I picked a niche I knew nothing about, which was I chose water damage restoration. I didn't know a single person in it. Didn't know anybody in it. I didn't know anything about it. One of the first moves I did is I joined a Facebook where like all these directors were active. And I remember one of the first questions I asked them, like, you know, I asked them, like, which kind of jobs do you wish you had more of? And they all like agreed category 3 flood jobs. Well, for me, like I had to even look up what the hell is a category 3 flood job. And it turns out, like, you know, like what typically happens in their world is when somebody has a big leak, usually the first person called is the plumber. The plumber fixes the leak, but often there's still water damage and plumbers don't fix water damage. And so they get the call after. And then they have different categories of how bad it is. Category 1 is like, you know, a little bit of water. Category 2 is kind of like in the middle. And category 3 is like, holy shit, everything's fucked. We're going to have to, like, you know, it's going to take us weeks to fix all this. And they like those jobs, obviously, because they're more money. And so I already knew I was going to sell them SEO and pay-per-click, but what we had to do was adjust it and go, okay, if somebody had a category 3 flood emergency, what would they look for? And it turns out there's keywords in Google, you know, emergency flood repair and, you know, emergency flood damage, and like lots of little variations of that idea. And so then we made a landing page that corresponded with, hey, if you got an emergency flood, like we can be there in like 10 minutes kind of thing. Call us right now because we'll be there faster than anyone else. And we'll let you know, we'll stop the bleeding as fast as we can stop the bleeding kind of thing. And I remember, like, you know, there's a tendency to want to say, I do SEO and pay-per-click and we create content for restoration companies. But actually our promise is we're going to get you category 3 flood jobs. And as you mentioned, there's a lot of embedded status quo things in there. Like, for example, a lot of general contractors struggle with paying their crews of guys because if they get all small work, it's hard to pay the guys if like you're just, you know, doing these little bare bones jobs. They also have like inconsistent work for their guys. And anybody who's ever had a team knows when you have no work for them, they still want a salary. So they end up costing you money. And then there's seasonality in certain businesses. And there's like right after it rains, they get a bunch of phone calls. But what do you do when it's not raining? What do you do when it's not storm season and those kind of things? And just by being able to articulate those things, they buy into the idea of SEO and pay-per-click, but it's really not about that. It's about understanding, hey, I know you want category 3 flood jobs. I know you want the big insurance things where you can go in, you get work for your guys and things like that. And almost like it's a relief for them because they're so used to being shouted at the wrong thing, that the thing they don't care about, the plane ride. Like, we are the greatest SEO, we'll get you top Google, no problem, top Google, #1 ranking, page rank, DR72. Like the things and when somebody shows up and says, hey, like, I know you just want category 3 flood jobs. I built a system using SEO and pay-per-click. And here's how it works. Like we find the keywords of people who got like really big flood problems. We create a bunch of content around it and put you guys in front of them. And we have a call to action about how you're the quickest and fastest person for the real deal emergencies. And the combination of doing those 3 things continuously, repeatedly over time drives people. And what an average outcome as, you know, usually after a few months, you'll get 50 to 100 of those phone calls every month. If that sounds like something you'd be interested in, let's talk. But it's very little of that is about SEO and pay-per-click. As you put it, it's the hell island in their case of like, I got no work for my guys. and all this inconsistent work and all this cash flow roller coaster. And I can bring you to Heaven Island, where at the end of that, you're going to get 50 to 100 phone calls every month of the specific type you want. And in every market, the specific kind of phone call they want is a little bit different, but it's always kind of the same kind of thing.
Specifics. Well, I think we have sufficiently hit this nail on the head many, many times. If you can't understand the idea of pre-selling so you can sell by now, I don't know that you're gonna. Maybe you should go back and buy Frankie, you got a course or something?
I do. I got a few of them. The one that people most ask me about is we got a course for closing over video, because once you know that Heaven Island and Hell Island and you know how to demonstrate it, like you actually don't even need to talk to them. They'll buy it without even talking to you. You just send them a little 5-minute video summarizing the details and they'll go, I want that.
Well, what's the link? I'll put the link also in the description, but you want to tell them the link real quick?
You can go to our website and find it at beyondagencyprofits.com. It's a Google Doc, so I have no idea what the link is, but it's clickable from there.
I love it. Keep it simple. Thanks for doing this, buddy. I think if I was an agency, first year, like first 6 to 12 months in the business, I know I would be struggling with trying to figure out an easy way, a less painful way, a painless way, really, to get customers. And I think I would be looking beyond the mark, which I think I would be forcing sales opportunities. And I think that's what most people do, is they just force an offer on an audience and they just don't understand why it doesn't work.
Yeah.
Instead, think about ways to pre-sell to a very specific person who wants a very specific outcome, and just let the sales come a lot easier. So
yeah.
Well,
and it's ultimately, like you said, when you're giving ideas in the form of that, like you're actually giving value to the marketplace. Because if I'm a plumber, or if let's say a restoration contractor, and I show you like the process for how you can get, the category 3 flood jobs, like these are the keywords that people are looking for you, and this is the kind of content you need to create, and these are the kind of pages that will actually drive them to actions to call you. Like even before I've done anything for you, you have received value from that information.
Yeah, that's right. Awesome, buddy. Appreciate you.
Yeah.
You're the man. And for watchers,
always
thanks for watching. Likewise, my friend, and we'll see you in the next video.